We are in absolutely unprecedented territory. Unpacking this entire Brandon Aiyuk 49ers situation with Kyle Shanahan slated to speak a little bit later today. Not normally something that happens on Saturday, but because the 49ers play Monday night against the Carolina Panthers, their entire week is pushed back a day. And thankfully, we get to talk to Kyle right after yesterday's news came out. Up on the San Francisco Standard, how a new twist in the Brandon Aiyuk saga changes the 49ers' outlook. Brandon Aiyuk leaving a crazy amount of cash on the table. $27 million fully guaranteed in 2026. The 49ers have avoided those guarantees because Aiyuk was not showing up to certain meetings or in his contract, the acrimonious negotiation produced that contract, the one signed in 2024, just 15 months ago. And perhaps most wildly, Aiyuk is reportedly not fighting the 49ers' removal of those $27 million guaranteed dollars. Normally, the NFLPA would file a highly contentious grievance on a player's behalf in this situation. But in a meeting with the NFLPA, Brandon Aiyuk said, stand down. I don't want to fight it, which presumably means that he wants to be released, that he wants to move elsewhere, although there is still so much that we don't know in this situation. Let me open up with what we do know. This drastically changes the 49ers spending equation over the course of the next several seasons. So first, a lot of you have been asking me about the 2026 salary cap situation for the 49ers. Now, remember that salary cap space is connected from season to season. So whatever you don't use in 2025 is going to be carried over into 2026. It all comes from one connected pool, right? It's like, say, different sinks of water, but a pipe connects to different sinks. So whatever you save now can help you in 2026 and beyond. So don't just worry about the 2026 salary cap hit. Although for spending purposes, the 49ers do have to take that into account. Their look at things has to come in a bigger picture. Anyway, as it currently stands, Aiyuk right now has a salary cap hit of $15.4 million for the 2026 season. If the 49ers just simply cut him at the end of this year, money will accelerate, money that the 49ers have staved off into the future through signing bonus and option bonus prorations will accelerate to hit the cap immediately, and his hit will be $29.6 million. So if they just cut him immediately, it'd be more expensive on the 2026 cap than keeping him would be, although they would save money long-term because they would no longer be scheduled to pay him the money in 2027 and 2028. The 49ers will also have a tool at their disposal called the post-June 1st release or post-June 1st designation. And I'm going to show you the contract here in a second so you have a little bit better idea of how it all works. But if they use that, then the salary cap hit for 2026 will be only $13.3 million, and they'll owe the majority of the Brandon Aiyuk dead money in 2027. So the post-June 1st release, or even a trade after June 1st where you could have the salary cap money staved off as far as dead hit into the future, probably makes most financial sense for the 49ers in the short run because they could actually free up a little bit of operational 2026 space. I've got them, and this is just an estimate right now, at about 35 million in 2026. So I don't think that you would just want to saddle yourself with another massive bill. I think you'd rather reduce Brandon Aiyuk's cap hit in 2026, which the 49ers can do thanks to the fact that he has decided to forego the guarantees in 2026, reportedly, according to The Athletic. That was Mike Silver and Diana Rossini. So here's the contract. This will help fill in some of the gaps of what I just talked about. I will remove the little video on the bottom left here so you guys can see the entire Brandon Aiyuk contract. A crazy amount of cash left on the table. Yes, do you see the red circle there? That is in the column for guaranteed money. This is the old setup. It's still up there on over the cap. They haven't updated it yet. That circled 27 million is what the 49ers have decided to void. and what Brandon Aiyuk is reportedly okay with giving up. It changes the whole dynamics of this situation. Look, nobody is arguing that this was a successful contract for the 49ers. They ended up paying Brandon Aiyuk over the past 2 seasons about $49 million. So $24.5 million per year over 2024 and 2025 for 7 games, 25 catches, and no touchdowns. So that obviously was a disaster. Nobody is denying that. However, moving forward, it looked like the 49ers had been stuck in cement because of what I have circled up on the screen. The $27 million fully guaranteed in 2026. The guy's recovering from a severe knee injury right now, and the trade market, I mean, they've wanted to trade him. We've been talking about this for a while. The trade market has not materialized in any reasonable way because of the massive guarantee still outstanding on the contract. It triggered on April 1st. The fact that the 49ers have been able to avoid this, the fact that Aiyuk is not fighting it, is obviously unprecedented. I mean, you could look at the Antonio Brown situation with the Raiders, but that, I'm looking at some of the past incidents. The Raiders voided approximately $30 million in guaranteed money from Brown's contract after he accrued fines for unexcused absences for practices and walkthroughs, along with other conduct considered detrimental to the team. The NFLPA ultimately chose not to aggressively pursue recovery of the voided amounts due to the contract's language. So that's a slight, I think, parallel in 2019. But the fact here that Brandon Aiyuk reportedly sat down with the NFLPA and said, no, don't fight it. I mean, it just seems so overtly non-combative after such an acrimonious process that to me, it screams that Brandon Aiyuk just wants to leave and wants to get out of the building. That's the way that I'm filling in this blank right now. But again, there's still going to be so much more to this story that we have to fill in, and hopefully it starts with Kyle Shanahan speaking today. Either way, the financial nuts and bolts of this situation don't change. That $27 million is no longer guaranteed. You look at where the 49ers are right now in the course of this deal, because they staggered this out into a signing bonus and several option bonuses that you could see here prorate. They stretch out like an accordion over up to 5 years after they're given out. The 49ers actually have a low base salary for Brandon Aiyuk in 2026. Now, $24.9 million is scheduled to hit as an option bonus on September 1st. That makes up most of the $27 million, which had been fully guaranteed. Now that that's not guaranteed, the 49ers won't have to pay that out unless Brandon Aiyuk is still on the roster at the time that it triggers, which is September 1st. So September 1st is when the $24.9 million does kick in. It's no longer guaranteed. That is still 10 months away. It's November 22nd right now. That's still a while away. The 49ers can keep Brandon Aiyuk on this team and figure out what to do up until that date. The contract is still ostensibly tradable. There have been a lot of questions. Well, can they still trade him? Technically, yes, but the question then would be, who wants to pick up the remaining portion of this deal? Would anybody be willing to pick up the remaining portion of this deal? Remember, nothing guaranteed anymore on the contract. The guarantees have been voided by the 49ers. Maybe that hasn't been officially processed yet by the NFL, but some reports have indicated that this happened all the way back in training camp. This is still one of the murkier aspects of this whole thing, but let's just consider the money voided for practical purposes right now as we discuss this. Moving forward beyond 2025, any team picking up Brandon Aiyuk would inherit 3 years of team control. They would inherit a $1.2 million base salary, but then they would also be looking at the $5.9 million option bonus, which kicks in on September 1st. And although it's not guaranteed, it kicks in before the start of the season. So it would become guaranteed before the start of the season. And you have to wonder if anybody would be willing to pay that kind of money, at least $27 million for Brandon Aiyuk in 2026, without having seen him play, coming off a 3 ligament tear in his knee. And that, to me, it doesn't seem likely, which is why the contract might be ostensibly tradable, but a release is probably the most likely scenario in this case. Anyway, this drastically changes the 49ers' financial situation. Why exactly? Well, this is the amount of money that they clear up in the big picture. $27 million here in 2026, if they do cut Brandon Aiyuk, obviously. $28 million non-guaranteed, or had never been guaranteed in 2027. $30 million in 2028. When the 49ers initially signed Brandon Aiyuk in 2024, it was a 4-year extension worth up to $120 million. They ended up dishing out about $34 million of those 120. If you included the 5th-year option, which was worth about $15 million in 2024, then they paid Brandon Aiyuk what I said, $49 million over the course of the past 2 years. But they didn't come close to paying out the entire $120 million. When they awarded that contract, the 49ers obviously had Brandon Aiyuk in their plans as the A-list wide receiver that would be the foundational pillar of that position room. However, they quickly came to regret giving out that contract. It seemed that they gave it out under a certain level of duress. We have to rewind back to the 2024 offseason and the mentality that the team was in at the time. They had just lost the Super Bowl. They were trying desperately to run it back one more time with not the same exact team, but close to the same team, especially the same core as the one that had gone through all those games in 2021, 2022, and 2023. They needed an ex-receiver. They had drafted Ricky Pearsall, but he wasn't going to be ready to go. This was before the shooting, too, when the Brandon Aiyuk contract was being hashed out. And they felt pressure to get Brandon Aiyuk signed so that Brock Purdy would have his favorite weapon and so the team could continue rolling. Aiyuk obviously made it very, very difficult over that entire 2024 negotiation, to the point where he ultimately signed an offer after training camp, right before the start of the regular season. He ultimately signed an offer that had been on the table for him for about 3 weeks. The 49ers were this close to trading him to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He made it so difficult on them that they, at different points, were close to trading him to the Patriots, to the Cleveland Browns, and then to the Steelers. Aiyuk essentially had veto power, though. So the 49ers were unable to pull the trigger on any of the trades prior to the Steelers one, but then they were going to trade him anyway. I mean, they were very, very ready to trade him. But Brandon Aiyuk came into Kyle Shanahan's office and said, no, I'm finally going to sign the contract that is on the table. According to the story, I think it was Mike Silver who reported this. Shanahan at that point ran to John Lynch's office, ran to the front office and said, Brandon wants to sign. Don't trade him. Hold off on the trade. And the 49ers inked a deal that they quickly came to regret, because Aiyuk's acrimonious behavior did not stop after he got paid. That was the big problem here. I get it. There was the incident with the shorts at practice. He was wearing red shorts. Everybody else had black shorts on. Kyle Shanahan obviously wasn't happy about that. But most important is how a player actually delivers on the field. And that's what Aiyuk wasn't doing to his pre-contract levels after he signed. Again, 7 games, only 25 catches, no touchdowns following the contract. And we were all talking about it on a week-by-week basis. The guy was not productive relative to his 2023 self. And 2023, Brandon Aiyuk was one of the best receivers in football. This is something that, people get wrong with revisionist history. Maybe they're trying to protect the 49ers or something. They try to trash who Brandon Aiyuk was in 2023 and before. The data, the tape, whatever you look at, the guy was awesome. I think the guy earned his money based on his play. We could start with the receiving efficiency, very top of the league. Yards per route run, right at the top of the league. 18.1 yards per catch, explosive weapon, hell of an X receiver for the 49ers. I mean, he was a massive, massive driver of that 2023 team. He also blocked in a way that was absolutely rare. I frequently cite the McCaffrey 70, 75-yard run, 65-yard run, whatever it was against Pittsburgh in week 1 of that 2023 season, where Aiyuk blocks Alex Highsmith, the defensive end, like he chips him, and then he sprints downfield and takes out the safety. He blocks 2 guys in one play. I mean, it's not normal for a wide receiver. Aiyuk was awesome for the 49ers before the new contract. And that's why Kyle Shanahan ran up to John Lynch's office. That's why they paid him 120 or up to $120 million. They didn't pay him $120 million. It was a deal worth up to $120 million, but worth $30 million a year. That's why some of these guarantees lasted into year 3 of the contract, which is extremely rare. So you could see what the 49ers were thinking in 2024. Aiyuk was balling for San Francisco. He was a massive, massive component of the team. If they wanted to run it back, that was somebody that they needed to have in 2024. But things did not improve after the contract. And, maybe the 49ers, you look at this, and the way I view it is they should have probably seen some of the behavior from Brandon Aiyuk over the course of that 2024 season as a red flag to step away. And, at some point, there are enough antics. Like, I don't think that Deebo Samuel crossed this threshold when he was negotiating his contract in 2022. And I don't think that Nick Bosa crossed this threshold when he was negotiating his contract in 2023. Brock Purdy definitely didn't cross the threshold in 2025. He signed his contract really early. But unlike those other guys, Brandon Aiyuk, I mean, there was social media antics. There was the whole hold in. So it was, he's playing both sides of the fence. He was walking around the practice field, but he also wasn't signing the deal. It was creating a distraction for Kyle Shanahan. There were a lot of signs that this one was more problematic than the negotiations before. And maybe that should have been the 49ers' cue to just abort, to just trade him. They obviously decided not to because they were so fixated on that 2024 success, and they wanted Aiyuk in the building for that because of how good he had been before. Water under the bridge, that's what happened. That's the bed that the 49ers made. It's the bed that Aiyuk made. They both signed the deal. They had to move forward into that 2024 season with the deal signed. The whole shorts incident at practice then happened. The poor play relative to previous standards happened. And then, of course, in week 7, against the Kansas City Chiefs, the severe knee injury happened. Not only a torn ACL, 2 other torn ligaments in Brandon Aiyuk's knee. We haven't seen him out on the 49ers game day field since. We have seen him on the practice field. This was about 2 months ago. This was on September 17th. Here comes Brandon Aiyuk sprinting from left to right, seemingly moving fairly well. Now, there are conflicting reports about this online. Some sources have said that the 49ers or Brandon Aiyuk has not yet been cleared. Other sources have indicated that Brandon Aiyuk believes that he's been ready to play. This is all part of the murkiness that I think is very, very irresponsible to draw a firm conclusion on at this point. This is the part of the story that we need to know more on. All I know is that he tore 3 ligaments in his knee. that I have seen him running out on the practice field, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's ready to play an actual NFL game. And I've said this over and over again, and I'll say it again. The return window expectation for the severity of injury that Brandon Aiyuk sustained is 12 to 18 months. He had so much swelling after the October 20th, 2024 injury that he didn't have surgery until I think late November. So we're just now at 12 months post-surgery for Brandon Aiyuk, which means that we're just now entering that 12 to 18 month window. So all drama aside, and nobody's denying the existence of these voided guarantees and all this and all that, but all drama aside, this is a severe knee injury that Brandon Aiyuk is recovering from. And the conflicting information about when he might be ready or when he might have been ready is just swirling around in a context-free vacuum right now. We're going to need more information to know exactly where that is. Because according to Mike Silver, there actually are still people in the 49ers organization, they might be in a minority now, who want a reconciliation, who would like to see Aiyuk back on the field in a 49ers uniform. Apparently there's not, full alignment here, although it does seem that the vast majority of the building now is moving toward this divorce with Brandon Aiyuk. My colleague Tim Kawakami at the San Francisco Standard has basically summed it up like this. He said that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have not really been in a mood to stick up for Brandon Aiyuk for quite some time now. So Parag Marante, Jed York, obviously his boss, owner of the 49ers, not happy with their investment. Nobody would be happy with this investment. Have wanted to trade Brandon Aiyuk. And, in situations where we want to trade a player, if in the past we've seen Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch say, no, they'll stick up for a guy. So we want to keep this guy in the building. Apparently there hadn't been all too much full-throated support for Brandon Aiyuk. And that would have to come from Lynch and Shanahan. That would have to come from the football side. So that's why this is seemingly headed to that split between the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk. So here's the article up on the San Francisco Standard. I talk about the changing financial situation for San Francisco, the crazy amount of cash left on the table. The link to the article is in the description. I will answer some of your questions in a little bit. I do want to talk about the 49ers changing financial situation moving forward, because I don't think that's something that we've touched on as deeply. $85 million is the amount of money that the 49ers can free themselves from without any penalty, really, moving forward, because it's not guaranteed anymore. Previously, $27 million of that had been fully guaranteed. This team's financial structure had been completely altered over the course of several seasons because they gave out more A-list top money deals than any other team in franchise history under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. That's a sign that they like their players. It's good. I mean, most of these A-list contracts for San Francisco have yielded good returns. I mean, starting with George Kittle to Fred Warner, Nick Bosa has played well. Obviously, he tore his ACL. Trent Williams has delivered good football. I mean, these are all A-list contracts that the 49ers have awarded over the years. They like to pay homegrown players. That's good business in the NFL. They hoped that Brandon Aiyuk would join that group. This one obviously didn't work, but it's part of a larger collection of A-list contracts that pushed the 49ers into a financial reset here in 2025. And by that, we mean that the 49ers didn't let go of A-list players, but consolidated their financial commitments to these A-list players. We saw new deals for George Kittle and Fred Warner over the offseason. Of course, also a new deal for Brock Purdy. That's an A-list deal for the 49ers over the offseason. But what the 49ers did is that they also weeded out some of the financial inefficiencies on this team. So B-list players, guys like Malik Collins or Leonard Floyd, who were making quite a bit of money around $10 million a year. 49ers jettisoned those guys. They needed to create a salary cap situation because there's a limited amount of spending that you could have to sustain a football team moving several years into the future. And if you got a ton of A-list contracts on the books, you can't also have a lot of oversized, bloated B-list contracts, or you're going to run out of salary cap space. The 49ers in 2024 were also too old and too injured. So a lot of the big indicators that you have to be good at to have success in the NFL, they abjectly failed at in 2024, right? Run defense at the bottom, separation at the bottom. No Aiyuk for most of the season. That had a lot to do with the separation. Special teams at the bottom. A lot of the hustle stats weren't good for the 49ers. So they said, all right, let's get younger, big-time youth movement, because that will also allow us to be more cost-efficient since you lock things in through the draft and there's the rookie wage scale. Let's get rid of these bloated B-list veteran contracts. Let's double down on the guys that are difference makers in the NFL, guys like Warner, guys like George Kittle. But let's get younger as a football team and let go of all these cost inefficiencies. The most glaring cost inefficiency on the 49ers roster is Brandon Aiyuk's deal right now. Hands down. The guy's literally not playing. He's got 3 torn ligaments in his knee that he's recovering from, may or may not be cleared from. I mean, there have been obviously conflicting reports. We got to find out more about that. But this contract right here has yielded the 49ers 7 games, 25 catches, and no touchdowns. So as part of the philosophy to move on from just this financial inefficiency that would threaten the team for years to come, not just at this spot, but at multiple different spots. As part of that entire philosophy, the 49ers said, well, we want to trade Brandon Aiyuk. This contract has gone sour. The situation has gone sour for all the reasons that I just listed. Why don't we try to ship off 2026 to 2028? But part of the reason they haven't been able to do that is because of the reasons I just listed. He's got 3 torn ligaments in his knee. They were stuck in cement with this particular inefficiency as long as Brandon Aiyuk showed up to meetings and did what he needed to not break the contractual language and keep his $27 million guaranteed in 2026. However, Brandon Aiyuk has not kept the $27 million fully guaranteed. The 49ers have been able to void those guarantees, and that is the game changer that we are talking about now. 2 things can be true at once. The 49ers could have given out a contract that failed spectacularly with Brandon Aiyuk that paid him $49 million over 2 years for just 25 catches. That's almost $2 million per catch over the course of 2024 and 2025 where he hasn't played. That can be true. So can the fact that the 49ers have gotten a majorly fortunate break here, have been able to do something that has gotten them out of further damage. There's been a lot of damage done already, but it looked like there was still a lot more to come. And it looks like the 49ers are now going to be able to skate free of the damage that was coming down the pipe moving forward, because the amount circled here on the screen, that $27 million, has been voided, and Brandon Aiyuk is reportedly not fighting it. That is a crazy amount of cash to be left on the table. We look at some historical precedent. I talked about Antonio Brown. Trent Richardson had some money voided by the Colts in 2015. The Colts voided Richardson's $3.2 million guaranteed base salary following a 2-game suspension for violating the team's personal conduct policy, which included missing a required team walkthrough before a playoff game. Richardson filed a grievance, but ultimately did not prevail. So if Aiyuk has missed multiple meetings, and if he just wants out to begin with, and he knows that he can't win a potential grievance, that explains why he might have told the NFLPA that he's not interested in this being fought. But the Antonio Brown situation in 2019, it's the only one that I could find with this kind of money on the line, voiding approximately $30 million in guaranteed money. That was the Raiders in 2019. This right here, $27 million for Brandon Aiyuk, wild, and I do want to know more of that story. Those of you just joining us, yes, Aiyuk is still ostensibly tradable, but it's much more likely that the 49ers go post June 1st release here. The salary cap situation for the 49ers, and this is the question that most people have been asking me about, they can save money for 2026. I mean, obviously they're going to save money in the big picture, $85 million, but they can save money specifically for 2026 if this is a post June 1st maneuver for San Francisco. And that is how they would best preserve 2026 room, of which they probably have 30 to 40 million estimate at this point. We don't know the 2026 cap, so it's really hard to firmly judge that. But this is where the 49ers are right now. You guys better get your questions ready, because we're in a situation where we've never been before as people following and covering the 49ers. Never, I mean, NFL history, I think this is relatively unprecedented. I'm talking about Antonio Brown in 2019. 49ers history, definitely unprecedented for $27 million to be voided and for the player to not want to fight it. And it's changed the 49ers financial outlook moving forward. Now we need answers to questions about the past few months and about the next couple of months. And Kyle Shanahan is going to speak on that today. And as we get filled in on more and more of this, we'll start to have more of an idea as to what exactly happened. I mean, I've gotten so many good questions about this on social media. One of them from my buddy Mark, who said, crazy, why do you think it got to this point? BA was always enigmatic for sure, but he loved winning, was one of the best wide receivers in the run game, and Shanahan basically signed off on the contract himself, as I told you. Wild that it deteriorated to this. And I said, crazy indeed. And this is all we know right now. The poor start to 2024, plus the severe injury in week 7, was a terrible addition to the acrimony that had built up over the contract negotiations. So you had these 3 toxic things just all tossed into a pot together. We'll learn more over time, but there remain many blanks to fill in beyond that. This, though, is definitely unprecedented, especially in 49ers franchise history. This show is brought to you by Bubs Natural, the collagen product. Bubs Naturals is a tribute to former Navy SEAL Glenn Bub Doherty, a national hero who laid down his life saving Americans in Benghazi, Libya. Glenn was a friend to so many, including Bub's founder, Sean Lake. Glenn's call sign in the Navy was Bub. Glenn Bub Doherty stood for self-improvement and was always helping others. That DNA is woven into the Bubs brand. Bubs donates 10% of all profits to charity in Glenn's honor, starting with the Glenn Doherty Memorial Foundation. Bubs Naturals doesn't just make the cleanest and most effective collagen peptides in the world. They also sell electrolyte supplements, MCT oil creamer, and more. All of their products have clean ingredients and are all third-party tested. Live better longer. For a limited time only, our listeners are getting 20% off at Bubs Naturals by using the code Lombardi at checkout. Just head to bubsnaturals.com and use the code Lombardi, and you're all set. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Bubs Naturals. All right. Maybe we wade into that question section unless Mike has an idea of anything else I need to cover. You know, this right here, this is a video from Tracy Sandler. This was back in August at a preseason game, before a preseason game. This is the last time that we see Brandon Aiyuk catch a pass from Brock Purdy. In early pre-warm-ups, he was running around a little bit out on that practice field, catching some passes. And 2 months ago, we saw a lot of this on the practice field. Brandon Aiyuk running in front of the media during the open media portion. We haven't seen that in a couple months. Now, Aiyuk has remained in the 49ers facility doing his rehab work. There was some report, I forgot what it was, about a month ago saying Aiyuk wasn't at the facility. He actually has been at the facility. He's been doing his rehab work in the mornings, but he just hasn't been doing it on public display like he had been doing about 2 months ago. So it seems like there might have been an inflection point about 2 months ago when Brandon Aiyuk stopped running in front of us at practice. But, all we have are these circumstantial markers that we could point to. We don't really have a definitive history of what exactly has happened over the past few months. So he's remained in the facility for rehab work, but hasn't been broadcasting what he's doing to the public eye in front of the media anymore. Obviously, some dynamics have changed, according to the report from Mike Silver and Diana Rossini. The contract guarantees in 2026 have been voided, and that obviously gives the 49ers a whole lot more flexibility moving forward. Just a wild situation to see a player voluntarily leave that much money on the table. If Aiyuk is indeed healthy, and he does force his way out effectively here at the cost of $27 million guaranteed in 2026, what would he sign for on the open market with another team? That's a multi-million-dollar question, quite literally, right? And if it's anything less than 26 million, 27 million, whatever he left on the table, that's crazy. He's coming off a 3 ligament tear, and obviously the attitude issues have been well documented with the 49ers are going to be something that follows Brandon Aiyuk around when he tries to sign another deal, especially with no playing time since the injury under his belt. So he's got no tape to show where he's at. That's going to be something that follows Brandon Aiyuk around, which it just makes it shocking to me that his course of action was to endanger the 27 million, which the 49ers were, I think, more than happy to void once they had legal standing to do so. Says, I've never seen anything like this. It's a big break for the 49ers following what was a terrible break for the 49ers when this contract was signed in 2024. Harold said he's not a 49er anymore. Well, technically he still is. And if the 49ers, maybe they can get some draft compensation in return for Brandon Aiyuk. Mike was asking me about a potential trade. And, let's go back to the contract. The 49ers don't have to pay the previously guaranteed amount, the $24.9 million option bonus. That doesn't kick in until September 1st of 2026. So let's get this up on the stage. All right, here we go. So if they traded the contract after this season, another team would inherit that option bonus, which kicks in on September 1st. Now, theoretically, the contract, if Brandon Aiyuk agreed, could be ripped up and something new could be signed because nothing is guaranteed there anymore. But so maybe some lower level draft compensation the 49ers work out if there's a line of teams that would be interested in negotiating with Brandon Aiyuk, and then he will obviously would have to sign off on who he's willing to renegotiate his deal with. Perhaps that's a scenario in which the 49ers could get some trade return here. But the big recouping has already happened. Maybe you recoup some lower level draft compensation, sure. But the big recouping is the $27 million not being fully guaranteed anymore for the 49ers. And now they have to move before September 1st. But he still very much is a 49er right now. And until he's not on the roster, you can't really say that he's not a 49er because there's going to be several fascinating decisions that San Francisco has to make in this case moving forward. I am ready for some good questions. It's going to be tough probably to answer all of them or close to all of them because of how much traffic we have on here today. So we have all these questions about dead money. Let's just understand dead money. Dead money is money that the 49ers have already paid a player that has to hit the cap at some point. And people are way, way too worried about dead money. The 49ers have shouldered so much dead money this year intentionally. As long as you have operational space within a given season and unused salary cap space moves from year to year, as long as you have that flexibility within a season, it doesn't really matter, right? So what matters is that you spent 49 million for 2 years of Brandon Aiyuk that saw 7 games, 25 catches and no touchdowns. That's what hurts. The 49ers can deal with and they had been Brandon Aiyuk had been guaranteed 27 million more on top of that for 2026. That was the problem. The 49ers have solved a lot of that problem by voiding the guarantees seemingly successfully. 27 million not guaranteed anymore. They can now handle whatever the dead money situation is going to be. And I explained what it was going to be a little bit earlier. If you guys really want to see it again, this kind of stuff doesn't bore you, I can show you again. The current cap hit is 15.4 million. It'd go up to 29.6 million if you cut them out right because the dead money would hit right away. But there's ways to push the dead money back and continue operating. And for fans, it doesn't make a difference in the world. For the team, it doesn't really make a difference in the world either if you're able to continue operating with the techniques that the 49ers operate. The 49ers and the Eagles both intentionally take dead money on these deals when they want to get out of them. And they're able to maneuver around it and play financial Tetris because it's better to move off of a situation early than it is to move off of a situation too late once you've actually paid out more money than you should, because that's what eats up salary cap space quicker than anything. The way to stave off the dead money post June 1st is by that designation, because then you face most of it in 2027 when the salary cap is bigger. So they can actually open up some 2026 salary cap room with a post June 1st release. And yes, if they're trying to push the dead money to future years, Mike just texted this to me, the trade couldn't happen until after June 1st. So we may be in for the long haul here covering this Brandon Aiyuk saga. This might not be over very quickly, especially given the fact that the financial machinations that I'm talking about might require June 1st as a date, as an inflection point in this whole process. Kyle's presser is at about 1:30 today. So that's why I wanted to get online sooner for you guys, because anything that we talk about over the course of the next few hours might be invalidated by 1:30 today, because Kyle Shanahan's going to speak on this. Do I think a Jennings extension is more likely now? Well, they got to figure out the receiver position moving forward. Let's see how Juwan finishes this season. It was kind of a prove it year for Juwan Jennings. Final year of the contract. He, decided not to sign a deal. I think it was worth about 12, 13 million that the 49ers might have put on the table in front of him. He wanted more money than that. He decided not to sign for less money from the 49ers. He's playing on a 1-year deal. It's been tough because he's playing hurt on the 1-year deal. I think he's nearly fully healthy, if not fully healthy at this point. If he finishes this season strong, yeah, the 49ers might want to reward him, but he's going to have some of the leverage of free agency as well. So maybe he hits the open market. Juwan Jennings is a really interesting player because he might be more valuable to the 49ers than he is to other teams, just by his style, the fact that he's not a burner, but he's a really good blocker. you've freed up, if you do move on from Brandon Aiyuk, and I have to always couch it with an if, but if you do move on from Brandon Aiyuk, again, you've freed up 85 million over the course of the rest of this contract. 27 million of which had been fully guaranteed. That's a big, big reversal. So of course it makes signing other guys like Jawan Jennings more likely. But it's going to all depend on how the 49ers prioritize their money and their spending moving forward. But it's just not clear how they currently view Jawan Jennings in the future. Of course, he's at the same position as Brandon Aiyuk, but they also have to look at draft plans. Are they going to add another receiver early in the 2026 draft? That this Brandon Aiyuk situation has to be fully resolved. It isn't yet. It's just heavily trending in one direction. I mean, there's so many different variables when it comes to building a roster that we can't, just say, okay, Brandon Aiyuk, he's going to be out. Jawan Jennings, they're going to pay him. It's nowhere near that simple. Why is Ayuk not participating? Well, I mean, that's the $1 million question. All we know is that there was a lot of acrimony after all of 2024. We know that Ayuk has been enigmatic, and now we know that the 49ers avoided the guarantees. The why behind all this, I mean, there's so much murkiness. There's so much that we still need to learn, right? So I'm sitting back and I'm going to learn over the course of hopefully the next few hours. Hopefully Kyle Shanahan gives us some good insight. Yes, the 49ers will almost undoubtedly add another receiver this offseason. Any good questions? Let's go for it. Could it be that he thinks the grass is greener on the other side? Maybe. I mean, we could drive ourselves crazy thinking about the mentality of Brandon Aiyuk. The truth is that he decided to leave 27 million on the table by not attending meetings. And, there seems to be some intentionality behind that. Can I say that for certain? No, I can't. I could say that there seems to be some intentionality behind that. And now I'm just going to have to sit back and wait to see the impetus behind all of this. And maybe we won't learn some of this stuff until 2 or 3 years down the road. Maybe I write a book in a few years where we have a lot of the reasons behind this. But there still is a lot of fog of war here that is concealing the intentions and the drivers behind a lot of the actions that we've seen. What we do know is that here's another question. Are there any potential teams who could pick him up? Well, yeah, 31 other teams could pick up Brandon Aiyuk if the 49ers cut him. But right now, he hasn't been cut by the 49ers, at least not yet. What we do know is that there's a crazy amount of cash that's been left on the table. It's very good for the 49ers who have wanted to trade Brandon Aiyuk for some time. This drastically changes the 49ers spending equation because 27 million is no longer holding them in cement in that 2026 calendar year. We know that Aiyuk is still ostensibly tradable. Can't rule out a trade, but it would be tricky just given the fact that he's still has an option bonus that is not guaranteed anymore, but still has a 25 million option bonus scheduled to hit on September 1st. And we know that it's been an extremely dramatic saga that has brought Aiyuk and the 49ers here. Now it's, something that has obviously spilled over into post-contract times. It has been crazy. It's been acrimonious. It's been different than the 49ers' other A-list deals. And now we continue wading forward further into unprecedented territory. And that's how I started this show. Unprecedented. We've never seen anything like this. And now we get to see what happens next. Stay tuned. Talking to Kyle Shanahan a little bit later today.